Hey, what's up, guys? Tim Kelly here from Zen Hailing and also Ground to God. And today I'm going to be doing a little bit of breathwork training. And I basically have some notes here from some classes that I do, some coaching that I do, and some teacher training. So I'm going to just do a little bit of a hodgepodge, a little mishmash of some of that knowledge, some of those exercises that are contained within, and just see where this goes and share it on the internet because, for me, trying to get people to come to classes or have everybody experience it, the only way to really do that is to share unconditionally, to not be selfish with the content. And the beautiful part about that is I believe so much in this content. I believe so much in the breath work. And look, everybody struggles with breath. Even myself, I'm a teacher, I'm the one coaching, but I'm human, and the emotional excitement of life, it hijacks our breathing rate and it makes us breathe irregular, and that's where then diseases come in, or you forget what you're doing in the moment. The emotional excitement's hijacking your breathing rate, making us hold our breath, pause our breath. And when you pause the breath, you still the fluctuating mind. So it's a good thing if you're trying to control the 60,000 thoughts, the chattering mind. It's the end of the day and you're lying in bed and your mind's racing. It's a good thing if you just take a nice deep inhale in, pause, start to still and slow down the chattering mind. But it's a bad thing if you're in the middle of a sports performance, or if you have to get up and do a speech, or you're a public performer and a singer and you have to get up and start singing and you have the nerves. So, and that's where a lot of this training comes in. I'm a coach for one of the professional soccer organizations and some of their junior teams. And a lot of the coaching, I'm the breathwork and mental conditioning coach. And a lot of my teaching and coaching is really how to get over pregame nerves and turn those pregame nerves that a lot of times will rob you of your energy the night before. You're worried about tomorrow's game, what to do the night before, but it's also to prep the body to get ready and be warmed up properly, not just the physical body where we're stretching, where we're, doing, half speed before we actually get into the game, but actually warming up the lungs the night before. So one of the fundamental exercises is 30 deep breaths the night before, prior to any type of performance. So if you're a singer or a public performer or somebody who's in sports, 30 deep breaths the night before. And you could also be doing this on the way to the event, in the car or while you're waiting in the locker room. But to prep yourself, to prep the physical body, to prep the mind, to prep your breathing. So the first, a lot of us who played hockey or soccer or done it, where you really have to gas your first shift and you're expelling a tremendous amount of energy on your first shift, you realize that if you don't warm up properly, sometimes it can prohibit your performance for the rest of the game or the rest of the fight. And UFC professional fighter John Jones had that happen to him, where he was supposed to take out an opponent in the first round, and it took him till the second round. And they said, "John, how come you didn't just take him out in the first round?" And he said, "I didn't warm up properly." And they said, "Well, wait, we saw you warming up with your coaches and all that." But he said, "No, I usually do breath work and warm up my breathing and my respiratory prior to." So what happened was, in the first round, he gassed out a little bit. He expended a lot of his energy, and then he emptied his tank a little bit and wasn't able to recover as fast. So mountain climbers, people who do free diving, and just general athletes, endurance athletes in general, will know what I'm talking about there. So that's where, a lot of with this training, it's realizing that your respiratory function is responsible for regulating the amount of oxygen, CO2, and acidosis in your blood. And when somebody says to breathe, coaches are yelling all the time, breathe, breathe. Parents are yelling to their kids, breathe, Johnny, breathe. And, when you're already at the end of your shift and you've already breathed so much and you're gassed, a lot of times when they're yelling breathe, you're trying to inhale, and what you want to be doing is forcing the exhale. That's one of the biggest mistakes that performers make. You want to be forcing the exhale. You've already over inhaled at that moment. You already have so much oxygen in your respiratory system that you need to force out that oxygen, force out that CO2 to make room really for fresh oxygen to come in. So you need to force out the exhale. Again, it's that CO2. So when somebody says breathe, the mechanics of breathing is your inhale, your pause. So then you have all that fresh oxygen bathing the body, invigorating the body. Then you have your exhale. And your pause. Then you're taking your next breath. So, noticing, exploring the pause, actually, taking that big inhale in and exploring the pause, allowing that oxygen to do its thing, to invigorate the body. So, the night before when you're doing 30 deep breaths, not just rushing it, like literally using the mechanics of it. When you're exhaling during the breath, when you're exhaling, trying to extend the duration of the exhale. So, meaning, here's an inhale, normal. Exhaling. So extending the duration, and when you look at the old Russians who would live like 120 years, and even the yogis, they would say we don't measure our life in the number of years, but by the number of breaths. And a lot of times they'll point to the animal kingdom to prove that, and they'll say, a rabbit in the wilderness breathes 100 times a minute and lives about a year. And then you have dogs and cats, they're anywhere from 70 to 50 times a minute. And then us humans, we're 15 to 25 times, depending on who's the human, per minute. And then all the way down to the tortoise, who's breathing 1 time a minute and may live 150, 200 years. So, there it might be a little bit of jest and just a cute little fable there. But there could be some truth to that. And if you look at the animals, again, they're a lot of times they're under different stresses because it's fight or flight for them. And for us, we're under the stresses of life. So, the 60,000 thoughts that we have every day, the 23,000 breaths. So the kid with asthma, he's really an overbreather. Yeah, he has to watch for his histamine levels and also hydration. But a lot of that is the 23,000 breaths. It's the emotional excitement of the day. It's and they're overbreathers. So then it's I can't take an inhale in. Well, because you have so much oxygen in there. So just like the person who's coming off between their shift, between the hockey shift and all, it's concentrating on the exhale. It's forcing out the exhale, forcing out that CO2. Again, your respiratory system's responsible for regulating the amount of oxygen, CO2, and acidosis in the blood. Well, that's your pH levels of your blood. And that pH levels is just the acidosis. It's like it sounds, acidosis. It's acid, it's inflammation. So if you're not a performer, you're not an athlete, and you're just a normal person who's aging, that shows up as gout. your toes this big, or your joints are swelled up. You've got inflammation. You've got heart disease. You have kidney stones, uric acid. Those type of things are happening with the physical body. General inflammation when just your pH levels are off just 1%. It's like a hot tub. Just 1 or 2% off, and you have all this bacteria in the hot tub. So your blood's the same way. And that's why when you see deep sea divers or free divers or even mountain climbers and they get the bends, that's what's happening in those moments. It's your pH levels are then spiking or too low and off the chain, and then it's affecting the rest of the body. So anyway, that's just a little bit about some of where breathing falls in to our lives. And one of the things I love, like even at the beginning of this last teacher training, our breathing, we all come into this life breathing the same way, being born, slapped, and taking that first breath. So really in life, we've all learned how to unbreathe. It's all been the stresses of life, hijacking our breathing rate, making it irregular, and again, taking away our normal functioning. The person getting up to do the speech and forgetting their words, that's because the emotional excitement is hijacking their breathing rate, making it irregular, meaning they're nervous and they're pausing their breath. So they know their script. They know what words they wrote down. They practiced it. They rehearsed it when it was all loose at home the night before. Now they're in front of the crowd, and public speaking is a big fear for many people. So then the emotional excitement, they're holding their breath. They're pausing the breath. They're stilling the mind. Again, the emotional excitement's hijacking your breathing rate, meaning you want to be in control of the pause. You want to be exploring the pause, but you want to be in control of that pause. When it's in control of you, it's hijacking you. And that's where then you're not even able to recall the normal thing that you wrote the night before. It's the same as the guys who would fight Mike Tyson. They'd be all brave and all that stuff. They'd get in with Mike Tyson, and the moment, the world championship, being in there against that killer, and you would see it. They would just, all their training would go out the window. They would just holding their breath and trying to punch and, losing all the mechanics, losing all their training in that moment. Again, emotional excitement, hijacking the breathing rate, making it irregular. So much, again, we all came in breathing the same way, being born, slapped, taking that first breath. And much of what even that I'm showing you with breathing, this stuff's intuitive. This stuff it's not like I'm making it up. And if you're more in tune with your body, you would just realize, it reveals, our respiratory reveals these signs to us a lot of times. You think about it with a sneeze, and then what do? We try and breathe in where no, we should be, because the sneeze is your body telling you, we're trying to clear that airway. There's something blocking the airway. It could be pollen. It could be dust. It could just be too much mucus, too much fluid in the eyes, ears, nose, throat, lungs that are kicking up. So just knowing a lot of times when we're having these reactions with our breathing, they're to show us something. So if we are slow enough and we can slow down enough and recognize that, we can use that as, hey, that's our body showing us a sign. Another one is a sigh. So it's like we get frustrated and we're so what am I actually doing there? I'm doing a prolonged exhale. That's almost like the bamboo exhale that I teach, where it's a prolonged exhale, getting rid of a lot of CO2 that's in the body, so you can make room for fresh oxygen to wake the body up, to actually wake the mind up, to reset the mind, to let go of the frustration that's happening when you're sighing, when you're just, I'm defeated, I'm, slumping your shoulders and all that other stuff. So it's, these things to reset our posture in those moments. So it's recognizing when these things are happening, you can see yourself in the mirror or see yourself as other people are seeing it, or just listen to what the body is showing you in that moment. Same with a cough. Again, well, the cough is showing, again, you're trying to kick something up from your respiratory or something within your larynx, pharynx, or trachea. Or it could be showing you that this instrument right here of your throat that you might not, like your vocal cords and your tongue, it could be showing you that you're not using that tool, that instrument, to lift others up for good. You could be telling a lot of lies or a lot of rumors, or speaking ugly words, or just yelling and your anger's off the chain, out of control, and you're using this instrument for bad. So, and not lifting others up. So it could be that. It could be showing you that, hey, I need to clear my larynx and pharynx and my trachea, or my bronchus, my main stem bronchus that's going into my lungs. Somewhere there, it's blocked. You might be a smoker. You might have too much mucus again. And mucus a lot of times is your body building insulation. It's summertime, you're inside in the comforts of the air conditioning the whole time. Now you're stepping outside in 90-degree heat. Your body's building mucus. Same with the opposite. You're inside and it's freezing out. And then all of a sudden you're inside with the heat cranked to 90, and then you're stepping outside and it's sub-zero temperatures. Your body's building mucus to protect the body. So, and then when that mucus builds up, when you're too much in the comforts of those controlling your temperature, that's where then maybe you're coughing up. Maybe you're coughing up a hairball like one of the cats, or coughing up a little bit too much phlegm. So anyway, just noticing that. The same is with holding your breath. So, the pause of the breath. Again, I talked about the pause of the breath, still the fluctuations of the mind. That's why we forget the speech, the emotional excitement, hijacking your breathing rate and making you pause the breath, hold the breath. Now, we see little kids do this all the time. They'll try and tune their parents out. They'll hold their breath, and they'll hold the breath, close their eyes, so they can tune their parents out. They can tune out whatever adult's trying to tell them or correct them in the moment. So holding your breath is one of those things. Now, at the point of heightened concentration, no matter what we're doing. So if I'm on the computer and I'm editing video, or if you're threading a needle, if you're doing artwork and you're a painter, or I know somebody who's a crane operator, and they say, man, at the end of the day, after there's people below the crane and they're lifting these heavy objects and they're just concentrating so much so they don't drop the steel rods onto their workers' heads and all that. So in that moment and working the crane, when they're really concentrating, they're holding their breath a lot of times. They're not breathing. It's like, and then you're, at the end of the day, you feel so depleted because you're really not breathing like you normally would, and you're sitting in a chair. So these are just noticing these things. It's like, that's why a lot of times in front of the computer, we should be getting up every 20 to 25 minutes, walking around, or just consciously controlling our breathing, doing some conscious breathing exercises, especially if you're an employer. I've done some breath work in the workplace for employers to get more productivity out of their employees. The employee, after a half hour, 45 minutes of on the computer, they're slumping, their posture slumping, their respiratories collapsed on top of each other. So that's no way to breathe. You're not going to take any deep inhales in that way. And it's going to start robbing your physical body, which will rob your mind and your cognitive abilities. So just noticing a lot of these type of things. The same is with somebody who's not laughing. You know what I mean? And, laughing's one of the exercises that we do, but laughing comes in yin and yang. It comes in, passive, where it's just normal, but it's also in like a martial artist where it's ha, 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 the word ha. And that's really happening in your abdominal region. And when you, like in Zen type of breathing, the Zen master and all that stuff, or that type of meditation to get you out of the chattering mind, it's really about bringing tension into the abdomen. When you bring tension into the abdomen, it takes you out of the fluctuating mind. When you step outside into the freezing cold to bear the burden of the freezing cold, that's like Wim Hof when they're going into the ice baths and all that stuff. It becomes a meditation for those people because, you have to focus all your energy on just combating that ice cold, that freezing cold water, whether it's just in the shower or jumping into a cold pool or a cold lake or actually into ice baths. If you're in the training room, and a lot of times even people who need to heal and they're having to go and do ice baths to heal, they can't even deal with that because they're breathing so not used to it, and it's uncomfortable. So just knowing, and there's a nervous laugh and there's different laughing. You don't have to be happy to be laughing. Fear, anger, and happiness and laughing is just a hair apart, and it's just another means of releasing internal pressure. And proof positive of that is we're walking down a dark alley in the middle of the city at night and we're afraid. So it's like, or we're in the movie theater and then the dynamics of other people, a scene's not even that funny and people are laughing and you start laughing. But you're watching the same scene at home and nobody's there and you're not laughing at all because dynamics take over, other people, it becomes infectious. Again, there's other considerations. So a lot of times, just even a laughing exercise, it's just doing it, knowing that it's another means of releasing internal pressure, which again is releasing stress and anxiety or pre-game nerves. So that's one of the exercises I do with athletes a lot. It's like, you want to get loose, stay loose, laugh. And if you're not in that position where you can even find yourself to laugh, then be aggressive with it and do the ha, 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 ha. And you'll see this all the time. You'll see teams, they're at the Orange Bowl and they're in the tunnel. And then all of a sudden they're ready to step out and the collective group. And then all of a sudden it's ha, 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 ha. Like the different tribes, the New Zealand tribes, the rugby teams do that a lot. Like intuitively, they're just doing a different chants. And that is just another way to collectively build that energy, but also to release that internal pressure, to show is my warrior spirit coming out. And they're proclaiming and showing their warrior spirit. They're letting out their pregame nerves. They're letting out the thing that's normally going to show up and bind them where they're not going to be loose. Also, just realize even with things like colds and the flu, realizing the power of doing some of these expulsion breaths, clearing, like I was saying, a sneeze instead of, breathing right in and trying to inhale, going with that, knowing that's, hey, we need to clear that pathway and going with some then expulsion breaths, continuing on with what the body just showed you. And that also is, skull shining breath in yoga or breath of fire in those type of disciplines. You start doing like a boxer when he's striking. That's an expulsion breath that's keeping him loose. It's relaxing the intercostals so he has more torque, but it's also releasing internal pressure and it's making sure he doesn't over-breathe, over-inhale. So a lot of times with athletes, even sprinters, you're doing a 40-yard dash and you'll see some people, they're holding their breath the whole 40 yards. And then at the very end, they're breathing. No, you want to be doing it in the cadence of the run, concentrating on the exhale. The inhale will happen naturally. You're going to suck wind and you're going to inhale when you need to naturally, but so you don't overbreathe, just like a boxer. When they're exhaling, they're tightening up. So it's also a defense. If somebody's hitting them at the same time, they're tightening their whole body up. They're tightening their core up and they're getting that power. That's where that power is when you're striking, that also stabilizes the body. So it'll stabilize the arm so they're not breaking the wrist. It'll give them more power from their torso, from that arm right there, that whole fulcrum, that whole, that hinge. Whew. So anyway, and crying, it's another way. Like when we hold on to our grief and we're not expressing our grief or not crying for long periods of time, again, that can really hold back and come out in our breathing, in our inability to actually take a big breath in. And a lot of times, if we can just find a way to cry, and a lot of times, man, I started crying the last couple of years, and I realized, oh, it's another release of internal pressure. But it's such a great release. And I'll be crying at like stupid funny movies where I'm not even sad. I'm like, why am I crying at this stupid movie? Or I'm crying at beautiful moments. And maybe that's a sign that my heart's opening up and all that, which it probably is, and that my emotions are flowing more. But it's another release of internal pressure. So somebody who's so wound up, if you're not crying and you're not expressing those emotions, you're going to be striking out either physically or emotionally at people, and that's not a good thing. You're not going to be then using your voice, and these other things that I've referenced are going to be coming up and coming out the wrong way. And that leads me into speaking. So speaking out loud, and that's where we're using our voice. So one of my breathing exercises that we'll be doing is, singing or chanting. And yeah, that's a healing sound current, and it's hitting a specific area of the body. So hits right here at your throat, and ha is hitting right here in your abdominal region, and hum is hitting right here at your heart center here. But those things, if you're not looking at them as a healing sound current, it's a way to make sure, hey, if you're not speaking up in your life, like I just did a coaching session over the weekend with kids, and some of them are trying to be more assertive in their life. Some of them might be captains. Some of them are actually trying to speak up and be more powerful on the field. Some of them are actually the coaches who are they're not in their voice. They're not projecting the right way. They're saying something, but the kids are tuning them out. The players are tuning them out because they're not believable. So a lot of this is, speaking out, and it doesn't happen the first time you speak it out. And we were doing one exercise where it was kind of goal setting. So it was like, okay, everybody have what's your goal in mind, and then we each individually went in front of the mirror and spoke it out. And the first time people were speaking their goal out, like, I want to be a champion, or I want to be captain and all, it's coming out all choppy, not believable. They're not even believing it. So you have to kind of speak it out and practice that until you're telling your unconscious body that it believes it, that you believe it, so others will believe it. And when you start doing that, that's where then, when you talk about the Bible, with the Bible, God creates and speaks. So, and God spoke in Genesis, and God spoke and created the heavens and earth, and God spoke and created the firmament, and God spoke and created this, and God breathed, into man and gave him breath. He made man from the dust of the earth, and then he breathed life into him. So God's all about speaking to create and breathing to infuse. And a lot of times God breathing is he'll give life into a certain area, or he'll bring destruction with his breath. By his breath they perish. In Job, by the blast of his nostrils they perish. So it's like God can either create or destroy, and he's given us a lot of these abilities as well. We have the ability to create when we speak it out. Back to the Bible even. Hey, when I first came to Jesus and left the New Age, I was getting attacked in my dreams, like literally sleep paralysis in my dreams, demonic dreams, and where I was like held down. And the only way to get out of those dreams is to speak the words Jesus. speak the power, like rebuke the spirits and speak Jesus, call on Jesus, like Jesus, Jesus. And when you're in sleep paralysis, you can't, like, that's part of it. You can't even speak it out. You're, and then all of a sudden I'm in bed and Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And the dream, you're right up and the spirit's gone. So that's the only way to break to sleep paralysis. But again, it's the power of speaking that out loud. It's also the power of Jesus' name and all that, but it's the power of speaking that out loud, rebuking those spirits. So again, if you're trying to manifest something, a goal, speaking it out loud, speaking that goal out loud. If you're trying to be assertive or try to be heard, it's tuning and toning your voice. So it's practicing it sometimes, knowing that you need to practice what you're saying, practice what you preach. That's what they say, practice what you preach. So anyway, that's just a little background before we get into any specific breathing exercises. And again, one of the things every day to prep yourself is doing 30 deep breaths. So no matter what, even if you got to practice and all that other stuff, or you've got a game, doing 30 deep breaths, it's going to warm you up. Or doing 30 deep breaths after your game, it's going to replenish you. So after your game, a lot of times it's like getting a little stretch in, so you don't really just tighten up. But your internals are like that too. Your lungs have just expanded so much in that performance by sprinting up and down the field, by skating up and down the ice over and over again. Your lungs were on fire. So then, what has expanded will contract. So keeping the expansion going, keeping the air in there, not just, okay, I'll wait till next game. I'll wait until then that's the next time I'll fire my lungs up. No, don't just wait. So prepping that area. And again, with breath work, a lot of times it's noticing. So I have the stick all the time. I'm always with the stick across my back, and that's keeping my shoulders back and down, my posture in alignment. So I can breathe properly. So my respiratory system's at a good angle to take in a mass amount of oxygen. So it's your respiratory diaphragm. So a lot of that, you could be lying down in bed doing it or lying on the floor doing it. But like the other day when I was coaching, kids were sitting at a picnic table and it was like, here, reach the back of the table, keep your shoulders back and down and, lift your chin up a little bit and just moving your neck a little bit, and a lot of things just keeping in good posture and alignment, but also waking the physical body up. Little tapping, opening the jaw for 10, 20, 30 seconds, as wide as it can go. Tapping on the forehead, the top of the head, the jaw, moving the jaw around. The other one would be sticking your tongue out. Just taking a couple dog breaths. So just a lot, like sticking the tongue out. And that's because your tongue, there's so much to do with your tongue that affects your breathing. And, your tongue is the first thing to get tensed up. It's an independent muscle. So it's the only independent muscle of the whole body. But it's also the first muscle to get tensed up when we're under stress. That's why we get tongue-tied. So knowing that keeping the tongue loose, and especially if you're going to be a singer or somebody who's talking a lot and all, if your tongue is tight and you're not speaking up a lot, you might have some problems in the beginning. Again, it's lubricating that area. It's getting that tongue going, that tight tongue. It's loosening that up. So we've got the tongue, and then another piece that I want to talk about is just your thoughts. So like monitoring your thoughts. And so with breathing, in the last session I just did on Sunday with the kids and even with their fathers, we did a gratitude meditation. So it was really like, taught the mechanics of breathing, inhaling, exhaling, and your pause. And then with the gratitude meditation, it was like, okay, everybody, pick something you're really grateful for in your life. It could be a person, place, experience, special thing, and see it in your mind's eye, feel it. So if it's like pins and needles or, you know what I mean? Or like somebody hugging me or, man, I was really grateful for that I scored the winning goal and people were cheering for me or whatever it is. If that's a feeling in the pins and needles, feeling that, knowing what it is, pinpointing it, and then each inhale, attaching it to that inhale and exploring it, trapping it in with the pause, just like the breath, just like it's oxygen. So inhaling in, gratitude for my parents, you know what I mean? Seeing their faces, seeing the sacrifices, those good experiences that we had. Oh, that vacation I just took. Oh, those people that just came, new friends that just came into my life. Oh, the cute girl I'm trying to get to know. Whatever it is, each inhale, drinking that in, attaching it to each inhale. And quite the opposite with each exhale. It's like, what's holding you back from getting that cute girl, from having that experience, from actually seeing your parents as somebody you should be grateful for? Each exhale, exhaling it out of your life. It's no longer serving you. It's not serving any of your goals or any type of means in your life. So then if you're just doing a 2-minute meditation that's attached to your breathing and the gratitude meditation, it's, well, we might be breathing 15 times a minute. So then that's 30 times that you're repeating that gratitude as you're inhaling that gratitude, manifesting. Exhaling what's not serving for me. So that's 30 times. So it becomes a great exercise and it doesn't have to take a lot of time up, and it's considered meditation in the new age. So now meditation in the biblical sense is really like not emptying your mind at all. So that's not even in the gratitude meditation and all that stuff. We shouldn't be emptying our mind and all, because that's then leaving us open for spirits. So not emptying the mind, but actually filling the mind. And a lot of times it's like filling it with the mind, filling your mind with scripture or words of God, but filling your mind with that gratitude, filling your mind with that thing you want to manifest, filling it with the goals, with you, like the highlights in your mind if you're a performer, like playing the game in your mind, you know, as you're thinking about it, as you're meditating, as you're visualizing that game, playing it ahead of time. You see Jordan, all these Michael Jordan, these champion athletes, Michael Phelps, these guys all would replay the event, the game, their performance in their mind prior to that. They would visualize their outcome. So that way when they came on, you know, the muscle memory, boom, it was just happening, sinking threes, or the moment was never too big for them because they practiced it, whether physically or in the mind. So, and one of the other things we talk about is FUD. So you'll hear it all the time. FUD, FUD. FUD is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And, you know, just like when you think about negative thoughts, a negative thought, don't let it become negative words that become negative actions that then can become negative beliefs, actual beliefs. So that's where then once you have that negative thought, the trick is to have positive thoughts right in your toolbox, right in your arsenal, ready to go. So it could be like, it might be then on your mirror at home, having all these, you know, positive things in your life that are like, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, or this is something I'm so happy this is happening in my life. So when those negative experiences or moments happen in life, boom, you can reject it, rebuke it, and replace it with a positive thought. So that's part of it. It's being prepared. If you're trying to remember in the moment, you're never going to do it. It's so hard to do it. Even me, who has all, you know, I've got a lot of the knowledge. I've got a toolbox with all these tools in it. If the emotional excitement is hijacking me, I don't even know to call in the toolbox. I'm in my anger. I'm ready wanting to jack somebody. So again, it's a lot of these things. It's practicing them. It's being familiar with these tools. It's not just doing it one time. Like if I'm coaching somebody, it's not just doing it the one time. It's them, after I drop that knowledge on you, after it seeps in and you tried that technique or experience on, now you have to, on your own time, be doing the repetitions. You got to be doing the reps. Just like an athlete, you got to do the reps. You got to do the work. You got to put the time in. So anyway, that's a little bit about fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You know, with fear, it's like Words become beliefs. Beliefs lead to identity. Identity leads to actions, and actions lead to your destiny. So again, it's like, and the opposite of fear is like courageousness, like being brave, and uncertainty. And the opposite of that is like, I'm sure of myself. It's confidence. It's being sure of yourself. And the opposite of doubt is I'm clear. It's like clarity of mind, clarity of action. This is it. This is it. This is what to do. Which a lot of times it's like, we'll be trying to follow our intuition or that kind of thing, which is, they'll say, is our learned experience. But I look at that now as, oh, that's God showing you before it happened. So anyway, in this next section, we're going to start to do some exercises that I'll show you that you can add to your toolbox in order to combat the stresses of life, to release the internal pressure pre-performance, or to just feel better, to maybe heighten your immune system, to get more energy, whatever. But there's a lot of breathing techniques in your toolbox that are available if you let them in. And one last piece I'll tell you is the power of our respiratory function and our respiratory system. So yeah, it can regulate the amount of oxygen, CO2, and acidosis, but your respiratory system is responsible for eliminating 70% of your body waste. So, not only are these tools going to be good for you in order to combat stress, but think about it. 70% of your body waste, that's your defecation, your perspiration, your urination, that's your peristalsis, your blood pumping, how much your blood's able to pump through you, how much your feces and your metabolism, like how quickly your food's going through you. That's your peristalsis, the invisible waves on your colon, on your small bowel, like moving your waste through your body. So that's why a lot of times you'll see people at the gym, they're doing all the crunches in the world and they still have the gut, they still have the paunch, or they're dieting and they can never get ahead and all because they're bypassing their breathing improperly. They take a breath and they're up here in their chest as opposed to breathing into their belly first. Then up into the chest. So using all three parts of your thoracic cavity, all three parts. Again, your respiratory system's responsible for eliminating 70% of all of your body waste. So, you want to get ripped or you want to look better and feel better, doing conscious controlled breathing is the same as for the body a lot of times as jumping on the Stairmaster. It's just you're just not pumping the legs and you're not getting your heart rate up to that point and, doing hills on the stair climber and stuff, but it's doing the same thing. It's working your lungs, working your internal systemic system, and propelling your waist, your peristalsis, heightening all those things. All right, guys, this is Tim with Zen Healing Breathwork. Breathe well, stay flexible, keep healing. So next we're going to get into some conscious controlled breathing exercises that you can add to your toolbox, whether you're a public performer, an athlete, or just somebody who's trying to have overall better health. Stay tuned.